The queen examined the human's armor. "This armor belongs to a legend," she said. The human ship had just touched down on the outer rim of the Zalarian Empire, a world known for its tall, elegant cities that shimmered under twin suns. Kane adjusted the strap of his legendary armor, feeling its familiar weight against his shoulders. The armor was sleek, dark, and marked with faint battle scars, proof that it had seen danger and survived. Stories across the galaxy claimed it belonged to a human hero of old, someone who had changed the fate of entire worlds. And now, Kane wore it himself. The landing ramp extended, and a squad of Zalarian soldiers, each twice Kane's height and moving with unnerving precision, waited. Their skin shimmered like polished stone, and their forearms held weapons that seemed alive with energy. They did not speak immediately, only observing the human with glowing eyes that reflected suspicion and curiosity in equal measure. A voice echoed through a small translator device clipped to Kane's armor. "Commander Elias Kane," it said, deep and resonant. "You are to be presented to Queen Nisara. Follow the guards." Kane nodded once. He had been trained for moments like this, but nothing could prepare him for the weight of history pressing on him. Humans were a young species, still learning their place among the stars. Yet here he was, stepping onto the throne world of a species that ruled several systems, wearing the armor of a legend. Every step felt heavier with the knowledge that the queen herself would examine him, and perhaps judge all of humanity based on what she saw. The soldiers led him through corridors of gleaming crystal and metal, their movement fluid and almost musical in its rhythm. Kane noticed the walls were etched with symbols and pictograms that told the story of the Zalarian Empire. Battles won, alliances forged, and enemies crushed. He tried to read the patterns, but their meaning was alien to him. Still, the artistry was beautiful. Finally, they arrived at a massive chamber. Light poured through translucent walls, casting rainbow-like reflections onto the polished floor. At the far end, seated on a throne carved from a single crystal, was Queen Nisara. Her many limbs rested gracefully, yet her posture exuded authority. She had eyes that seemed to pierce through space and time, glowing with intelligence and a quiet curiosity. The air in the chamber felt charged, as though the very room recognized the arrival of someone remarkable. The Zalarian soldiers stopped, and Kane stepped forward, keeping his hands visible to show he bore no hidden weapons. The armor he wore gleamed under the chamber's light, every curve and line designed not only for protection but to inspire respect. Nisara's gaze fell upon it immediately, and for a brief moment she seemed to lean forward, intrigued. "This armor," she whispered in her melodic, echoing voice, amplified slightly by the chamber. "It belongs to a legend." Kane stiffened, feeling a mixture of pride and caution. "It has belonged to many who fought for humanity," he said carefully. "Now it belongs to me." The queen's many eyes shifted between him and the armor, studying the scratches, the marks, and the subtle glow of its energy shields. She had read about humans, of course. She knew they were primitive by Zalarian standards, frail bodies, short lifespans, unpredictable temperaments. But she also knew the stories. Humans, it seemed, always found a way to survive, often against impossible odds. And this armor, this piece of history, was proof of that ingenuity. "Legends," she murmured again. Then she raised one hand, signaling Kane to stop. "You will not enter the throne hall further until you have proven yourself worthy." Kane's jaw tightened. He had expected trials, of course. The Zalarians were known for testing all visitors, especially those from younger species. Yet hearing it confirmed in her voice made the moment real. "What kind of proof?" Kane asked, his voice calm, steady. Nisara did not answer immediately. Instead, she waved her hand, and the walls of the chamber shifted, revealing an arena that had been hidden behind the crystal panels. The floor was a glowing surface, reflecting the light of the twin suns outside. Shapes moved across it, robotic constructs, strange machines that resembled the Zalarians themselves. "You will face tests of skill, strategy, and courage," Nisara said finally. "Your species has been underestimated for too long. Let us see if the legends are true." Kane nodded. His heart beat faster, but he did not show it. He stepped onto the arena floor, feeling the energy hum beneath his boots. He glanced at the first obstacle, a series of moving constructs, agile and powerful. They were designed to challenge his speed, reflexes, and tactical thinking. Kane adjusted the visor of his helmet, checking the armor's sensors. Every joint, every plate, and every integrated system was working perfectly. This was more than protection. It was an extension of himself. The constructs lunged forward, their movements precise and coordinated. Kane dodged, rolled, and countered with calculated strikes, using both the armor's enhanced strength and his own instincts. The Zalarian guards watched silently, some whispering among themselves. Kane felt the eyes of the queen on him, and that alone fueled his focus. The trial was not just about combat. Soon the arena shifted, walls rising and lowering to create a labyrinth filled with puzzles and traps. Kane's human mind, known for creativity and adaptability, became his greatest asset. He analyzed patterns, set clever distractions, and used the armor's capabilities to navigate traps that would have defeated a less resourceful participant. Hours passed, or what felt like hours in the alien light, and Kane completed each challenge. Each victory earned a nod from Nisara, subtle but unmistakable. She whispered occasionally to her advisors, pointing out nuances in Kane's strategy and movements. "Notice how he adapts. He does not rely on strength alone," she said. "There is ingenuity in him." Humanity has not been properly understood. Finally, the last trial appeared. A duel against one of the Zalarian elite warriors, a towering figure with 4 arms, each wielding a weapon that seemed capable of slicing through steel. Kane's armor hummed with energy as he readied himself. The duel began with a flurry of attacks, Zalarian precision against human ingenuity. Kane dodged, parried, and used the environment to his advantage. He wasn't the strongest, but he was clever. Every move was calculated, every strike purposeful. The duel ended not with a final blow, but with Kane forcing the elite warrior into a position where continuing the fight would be futile. Nisara rose slightly from her throne, her many arms moving in a gesture of approval. She had seen what she needed to see. "You have survived the trials," she said. Her voice echoed with authority and wonder. "Not because you are the strongest, but because you are clever, courageous, and unyielding. The legend of the stories, they are alive in you." Kane lowered his weapon, breathing heavily but proud. He had faced the tests of a species far older and stronger than his own, and he had proven humanity's worth. Nisara's gaze softened as she examined the armor again, her fingers tracing imaginary patterns in the air above it. "This armor," she said almost to herself, "has chosen wisely. The legend continues." Kane nodded, unsure whether she spoke to him or to history itself. In that moment, he realized that humanity's place among the stars was not defined by size, strength, or speed. It was defined by spirit, courage, and the will to overcome any challenge. The queen stepped forward, her presence filling the chamber. "Tomorrow," she said, "you will meet with my council, but for now, rest. You have earned it. And know this, human, your actions here will not be forgotten." As Kane was led away to quarters designed for him, modest but comfortable, he felt a new sense of purpose. The trials had been difficult, the Zalarians intimidating, but he had survived. And in the quiet of the night, as the twin suns set and the city of the Zalarian Empire glowed with light, Kane looked out over the horizon and whispered to himself, "Legends are not born, legends are made." And this is only the beginning. The next morning, Commander Elias Kane woke to the quiet hum of the Zalarian palace. The chamber was sleek and surprisingly minimalistic, a mix of crystal and metal, yet designed with subtle curves that gave it elegance. He ran a hand over the surface of his armor, feeling the familiar ridges and grooves. Though it had survived many battles, the armor now felt almost alive on his body, responding instinctively to his movements. Outside, the palace corridors buzzed with activity. Kane could hear Zalarian servants moving silently, their multi-limbed forms carrying trays of food and devices he could not recognize. He dressed quickly and left his room, guided by a young Zalarian aide named Lyris, who had been assigned to accompany him during his stay. Lyris was quiet but observant, her glowing eyes shifting constantly as she studied Kane. "Today," she said finally, "you will face the next phase. The Council wants to understand not only your skill but your mind. Humans are unpredictable. That is why we are watching you closely." Kane nodded. He had been prepared for tests of combat, but tests of mind were an entirely different challenge. Humans often relied on creativity and adaptability, traits that many older species underestimated. Kane had learned that survival often depended on quick thinking as much as physical strength. The two walked through the palace corridors, their steps echoing faintly. Kane noticed how the palace seemed alive in subtle ways. Panels shifted to create passages, Holographic projections flickered on walls, and the floor seemed to subtly guide them. The palace itself was a test, Kane realized, a measure of how a visitor could adapt to unfamiliar environments. They arrived at a vast chamber, larger than the previous arena. The walls glowed with shifting light patterns, creating illusions of vast landscapes, mountains, forests, oceans, all projected with astonishing detail. In the center, a group of Xylarian council members awaited. Their forms were regal and intimidating, each more imposing than the last. "Commander Kane," one of them began, her voice deep and resonant, "you have survived the trials of strength and skill. Now we must measure the qualities that make legends: intelligence, leadership, and courage." Kane stepped forward, careful to keep his movements calm. The council's eyes, glowing softly, seemed to pierce through his very thoughts. He felt no fear, only determination. The first test was a strategic simulation. Kane found himself standing before a holographic table that displayed a miniature battlefield. Xylarian soldiers moved across the grid, and Kane's task was to deploy forces to defend a city under attack. He quickly noticed that the simulation did not simply reward brute force. The Xylarians had programmed patterns of attack that were clever and unpredictable. Kane's mind raced, analyzing the options. He remembered his training: understand the enemy, anticipate moves, and exploit weaknesses. Kane began placing units strategically, creating decoys, and using terrain advantages. When the attack came, his strategy unfolded perfectly. Units moved as he directed, countering the Xylarian maneuvers with unexpected tactics. The council murmured among themselves, impressed by his quick thinking. Next, Kane faced a puzzle unlike any he had encountered. A complex device hovered in front of him, composed of shifting geometric shapes, glowing symbols, and moving parts. The instructions, displayed in a language he did not understand, required him to align the shapes in a specific order to unlock the mechanism. Kane studied the device carefully. He did not know the language, but he understood patterns. He noticed recurring symbols and the way shapes interacted. Slowly, methodically, he manipulated the device, testing combinations and learning from failure. The mechanism clicked and whirred, finally revealing a hidden compartment with a glowing crystal inside. Kane had solved the puzzle, not by brute force, but by observation, logic, and persistence. Queen Nisara observed from a raised platform, her many arms folded gracefully. She whispered to an aide, "Notice how he adapts. This is no ordinary human. He learns quickly and does not panic. The legends, perhaps they were true." But the council's tests were not over. A sudden alarm sounded and the chamber transformed. Walls rose to create a new arena, and Xylarian combat droids appeared, each equipped with multiple weapons and advanced AI. Kane's training in adaptive combat became vital. He dodged, rolled, and countered, using his armor's integrated systems to predict attacks and respond instantly. The droids were relentless, but Kane's human ingenuity allowed him to exploit weaknesses in their programming. The battle was fierce, but Kane emerged victorious once more. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of surprise and approval. Kane felt the weight of their scrutiny, but he did not falter. Each trial confirmed what he had always known. Humans were underestimated not because they lacked strength, but because their resilience, creativity, and adaptability were unmatched. After a brief pause, the final challenge of the day appeared: a test of courage. Kane was transported to a darkened chamber filled with shadows and illusions. Strange sounds echoed around him, and figures seemed to move just beyond his vision. The test was designed to provoke fear, uncertainty, and hesitation. Kane took a deep breath. His armor's sensors adjusted to the darkness, but he knew this was not just a test of technology, it was a test of spirit. He stepped forward, carefully observing his surroundings, trusting his instincts. Shadows shifted, shapes lunged, and illusions tried to mislead him, but Kane did not hesitate. He moved with purpose, staying calm and focused, confronting each challenge without fear. Finally, he reached the center of the chamber, where a holographic projection of Queen Nisara herself appeared. The image spoke in a voice that echoed in Kane's mind. "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. You have shown it today, human." Kane exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. The trials were not merely physical, they tested his mind, his spirit, and his humanity. And he had passed. The queen emerged from her platform, her presence commanding yet calm. She walked toward Kane, examining the armor once again. Her glowing eyes lingered on the scratches, dents, and marks, each telling a story of past battles. "This armor," she said softly, almost reverently, "has seen much. But today it has witnessed something new, the courage and ingenuity of its wearer." Kane bowed slightly, respecting her authority. "The armor carries the stories of those who came before me," he said. "It is more than protection, it is a symbol of what humanity can achieve." Nisara nodded. "Indeed, and you human have proven that the legends were not just stories. They are alive. You embody them." Kane's mind raced with the implications. The trials had earned him respect, but more importantly, they had opened a door. Humans, long dismissed by the Zalarians as primitive, could now be seen as equals in courage and intellect. Kane felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, and humanity's survival depended on moments like this, proving worth, inspiring trust, and showing that even the youngest species could rise to greatness. As the day ended, Kane was led to a quiet chamber to rest. He removed his helmet and examined the armor closely. It hummed softly, responsive to his touch, as if acknowledging his success. Kane allowed himself a small smile. The trials had been difficult, but he had learned much, not just about the Zalarian Empire, but about his own people. Humans were capable of more than most species realized. Outside the chamber, the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the palace. Kane looked out at the city below, its towers and spires glowing with light. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy. The council would ask more questions, test him further, and perhaps even challenge the very limits of human ability. But he was ready. Tonight, he allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The trials of the day had been a test of skill, intelligence, and courage, and he had passed them all. The armor, legendary and storied, now seemed to recognize him as more than a human. It recognized him as part of the legacy it carried. Kane whispered to himself, a simple declaration that held more weight than he realized. Legends are not just in the past. They are made every day. And somewhere deep within the palace, Queen Nisara watched from a distance. Her eyes glowed softly as she observed the human resting in the chamber. "Perhaps," she said quietly to herself, "humanity is not to be dismissed. Perhaps the legends are only beginning." For the first time, Kane felt that he was not just representing himself. He carried the hopes and pride of his entire species, and the recognition of that fact was both humbling and empowering. He had survived the first true test, but he knew the next phase would demand more than skill and courage. It would demand heart, ingenuity, and the unyielding spirit that defined humanity itself. And so, as night fell on the Xylarian throne world, Kane prepared. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and he would face them with the same determination that had carried humans through countless trials before him. The legend of the armor was no longer just a story. It was alive, and he was part of it. The morning sun of the twin stars spilled across the crystalline towers of the Zalarian palace. Commander Elias Kane stood on a balcony, the wind carrying a soft, electric hum from the city below. The trials had tested his strength, mind, and courage, but today the Queen had promised something different, answers about the past. Kane adjusted the straps of his armor. Despite the victories of the previous day, he knew that respect from the Xylarian Council was earned not through combat alone. He had survived their trials, but understanding their history and sharing humanity's own was a challenge of equal importance. A sleek transport vehicle waited for him at the palace gates, piloted by Lyris, his quiet guide and observer. "The council awaits you," she said. "Today you will see why the armor you wear is more than a legend. It is history." Kane entered the transport, feeling the hum of energy beneath him as the vehicle lifted smoothly into the sky. It glided over the city, offering a view of sprawling towers and bridges that reflected the twin suns. The scale of the Xylarian Empire was staggering. Kane reminded himself that despite humanity's ingenuity, the humans had yet to reach such heights, but they had survived, and sometimes survival was stronger than sheer power. The transport landed in a vast chamber filled with holographic displays. Walls pulsed with soft light, projecting images of battles, leaders, and civilizations from across the galaxy. At the center stood Queen Nisara, her multiple limbs folded gracefully, yet every movement radiating authority. "Commander Kane," she said, her voice echoing, calm yet commanding, You have proven your skill, you have shown courage and intelligence, but now you must understand the story behind the legend you wear. Kane stepped forward. I am ready, Your Majesty, he said. His armor gleamed softly in the room's light. Nisara gestured, and a holographic display materialized, showing an ancient battlefield. Towering Zalarian soldiers moved alongside other alien species, engaging in conflict with a small, resilient group of humans. Kane recognized the historical references immediately. These were images of humanity's wars during the Great Expansion, a time when humans barely held their place in the galaxy. These images are centuries old, Nisara explained. Humans were a young species then, considered weak and insignificant. Yet one human rose above all others. His deeds became legend, and his armor became a symbol of hope for your species. Kane examined the images closely. The armor in the projections bore striking resemblance to his own, sleek, adaptive, and marked with battle scars. But what caught his attention most were the humans' actions. They were small, often outnumbered, yet their strategies were clever, unpredictable, and effective. Every victory seemed impossible, yet they endured. You wear the armor of Jaron Voss, Nisara continued. He was the human who led the defense of Earth during the War of Shadows. He united your people, turning desperation into strategy and weakness into advantage. His courage inspired humans across worlds to rise against overwhelming odds. Kane felt a chill. The name was familiar from human history lessons and old stories told by his mentors, but seeing it brought to life in the holographic display was different. He realized that his armor was not just a suit, it was a connection to every human who had fought, survived, and refused to surrender. Your armor carries more than protection, Nisara said. It carries hope, ingenuity, and the spirit of humanity. The Council wishes to see if that spirit remains alive in the wearer. Before Kane could respond, the chamber shifted. Holographic images dissolved, replaced by a projection of the present-day Zalarian capital. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the room. A warning flashed. Rogue Zalarian forces had breached the city's outer defenses. They were not attacking indiscriminately. They were targeting key council members, threatening the stability of the Empire itself. Nisara's many eyes narrowed. Commander Kane, she said, this is unexpected. The rogue faction seeks to exploit our curiosity about humanity. They see our focus on you as a weakness. If you truly embody the spirit of your species, perhaps you can help us defend the Empire. Kane nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. I will do everything I can, he said. His armor responded instantly, systems activating to enhance mobility, communication, and tactical analysis. Nisara gestured to a holographic map of the city. The faction has cut off our main defense lines. You will lead a counter-operation. Your approach must be creative. They know Zalarian tactics, but they will not anticipate human ingenuity. Kane studied the map, noting choke points, energy barriers, and patrol paths. He realized that brute force would not succeed. Clever maneuvers, unexpected diversions, and strategic deployment were essential. He instructed Lyris and a small team of Zalarian soldiers to follow his lead, combining human unpredictability with Zalarian strength. As they moved through the city's corridors and streets, Kane observed the chaos. Citizens and soldiers alike were evacuating, while the rogue faction moved with speed and precision. Despite their training, Kane noticed patterns, overconfidence in their strength, predictable patrol rotations, and reliance on superior numbers rather than adaptability. He adjusted his strategy. Using holographic projectors, he created illusions of soldiers in locations where none existed, drawing the rogue forces into traps. Explosive devices were placed to block key avenues, forcing them into predictable paths. Kane moved swiftly, his armor enhancing his speed and strength, allowing him to neutralize threats with precision. The battle was intense. Kane dodged energy blasts, redirected attacks, and led Zalarian soldiers into coordinated strikes. The combination of human ingenuity and Zalarian power proved unstoppable. The rogue faction, despite superior numbers, could not anticipate the strategies Kane employed. At one point, Kane faced a rogue commander in single combat. The figure was massive, 4 arms wielding energy blades, and moved with terrifying speed. Kane's armor absorbed and redirected attacks, giving him just enough advantage to counter. Using the environment, he trapped the commander under a collapsing structure, incapacitating him without unnecessary harm. Queen Nisara observed from a high vantage point, her expression unreadable but her attention unwavering. "Remarkable," she whispered. "He adapts, he calculates, he inspires loyalty just as the legends described. Humanity is not weak. Humanity survives and thrives through ingenuity." By nightfall, the rogue faction was contained. The city had suffered damage, but thanks to Kane's leadership, key infrastructure and lives were preserved. The council members regrouped, examining the situation with a mix of relief and astonishment. Nisara approached Kane as he inspected the streets, armor scuffed but intact. "You have done more than survive trials of strength and mind," she said. "You have proven that your species can face danger and prevail, even against our own. This is what it means to be legendary." Kane looked at the city, at the citizens beginning to emerge from shelters, and felt a surge of pride, not for himself, but for humanity. "It's not just me," he said. "It's every human who has ever fought to survive. Every scientist, soldier, leader, and child who refused to give up. That is the true strength of humanity." Nisara's many eyes glowed softly as she studied him. "Perhaps we have underestimated your kind for too long. Your legend is alive, and it continues through you. But there is more to understand, more than battles and tactics. There are truths of the past that may guide our future." She motioned for Kane to follow her to a private chamber. There she revealed records of ancient human-Zalarian interactions, stories of alliance, conflict, and mutual respect. Kane realized that humans had not only survived, but had played pivotal roles in shaping galactic history. The Queen showed him images of the original Jaren Voss, standing before a council of alien leaders, negotiating peace in impossible circumstances, wearing the very armor Kane now wore. "This armor was crafted not only for protection," Nisara explained, "but to symbolize hope. Its wearer inspired others, turning fear into courage, weakness into strength. Today you have carried that legacy." Kane bowed slightly. "I will honor it, Your Majesty. Humanity will not fail, and neither will the ideals this armor represents." Nisara's expression softened, a rare display of emotion for the often imposing queen. "I believe you," she said. "And now the galaxy may learn that legends are not only in the past, they are alive and they walk among us." Outside the chamber, the city began to recover from the chaos of battle. Kane felt the quiet hum of energy from his armor and the lingering respect of those around him. The trials had been more than physical. They were a measure of spirit, intellect, and courage. And humanity had passed once again, yet Kane knew this was only the beginning. The rogue faction had been a warning, not the final threat. Greater challenges awaited, and he would need every skill, every bit of ingenuity, and every ounce of courage to face them. Humanity's place among the stars was fragile, yet it was undeniable, and as long as humans persisted, hope would endure. That night, Kane stood on the balcony once more, gazing at the twin suns setting over the Xylarian capital. He felt the weight of responsibility, the pride of his people, and the quiet thrill of adventure. The armor he wore was no longer just a relic. It was a symbol of unity, courage, and the enduring spirit of humanity. Queen Nisara watched him silently from the chamber behind him, understanding at last that this human was more than a visitor. He was a bridge between species, a living testament to what humans could achieve. And in that moment, she whispered to herself, "Perhaps the legends are only beginning. Perhaps humanity is ready to shape the galaxy in ways we have yet to imagine." Kane turned back to the city, armor glowing faintly under the fading suns. He whispered to himself, steady and sure, "Legends are not just stories. They are living, breathing, and enduring, and today humanity proves it again." The calm after the city's battle was deceptive. Commander Elias Kane felt it in his bones, a tension that no victory could fully erase. Even with the rogue faction defeated, the Queen had warned him that greater dangers lurked beyond the palace walls. Humanity had survived countless challenges on Earth and among the stars, but this threat felt larger, more unpredictable, and perhaps unlike anything he had faced before. Kane walked through the palace corridors, armor humming softly with energy. The Xylarian guards gave him wide berth, a sign of respect and caution. He had earned the admiration of the council, but he also knew that admiration alone could not protect the city from what was coming. Queen Nisara awaited him in the central chamber, her many limbs folded elegantly. Her glowing eyes met his. "Commander Kane," she said, "you have proven that humanity can face trials of strength, intelligence, and courage. But now the galaxy presents a new test, one that may determine the future of both our species." Kane's heart steadied. He had faced unknown enemies before, but the way she spoke suggested a danger unlike the rogue faction. "What is it?" he asked. Nisara gestured, and the chamber transformed into a holographic projection of deep space. A dark fleet of ships appeared, moving in formation. They were unlike any Zalarian vessel or human craft Kane had seen. Sleek, black, and devoid of markings, they seemed to absorb light, casting a shadow across the projection. "These ships belong to the Vorin Collective," Nisara explained. "A species long thought extinct. They are survivors of a cataclysmic war, and they strike without warning. Their technology is advanced, their tactics brutal, and they see weaker species as prey. Humanity and the Zalarians may be their next target." Kane studied the fleet, calculating possibilities. Humans had faced extinction-level threats before, but this was different. The Vorin were efficient predators, patient and cunning, and Kane knew that intelligence alone might not be enough. He had to find ways to outthink, outmaneuver, and inspire. Nisara stepped closer. "You will accompany me to the council chamber. Your insight, your tactics, and your human perspective may give us an advantage that no Zalarian mind alone can provide." Kane nodded. Together, they walked through corridors alive with activity, soldiers preparing, analysts calculating trajectories, and engineers adjusting energy shields. The palace was a hive of planning and anticipation. Kane felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of opportunity. Humanity had survived against overwhelming odds before. They would do so again. In the council chamber, a massive star map floated above a central table. Kane joined the council members, Zalarians of immense age and wisdom, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Nisara introduced him. "Commander Kane, human representative and strategist, your species has shown remarkable resilience. Now your insight may be crucial." Kane studied the map carefully. The Vorin fleet moved in ways that seemed deliberate but unpredictable. Kane spoke, his voice calm and precise. "They are testing our sensors, probing for weaknesses. Their fleet is too advanced for direct assault. We need a strategy that forces them to reveal their command ship. That is where their control lies. If we neutralize it, the fleet may be disoriented." The council murmured. Kane continued. "We can create decoys using holographic projections of our fleet, simulate a retreat, and draw them into a confined space near the outer rings. Once they are committed, targeted strikes from specialized ships can disrupt their command. Speed, timing, and adaptability will be key. They may anticipate Zalarian tactics, but they will not anticipate human unpredictability." Nisara's eyes gleamed with approval. "You suggest deception combined with precision strikes. Risky but clever. It may work." Preparations began immediately. Kane coordinated with Zalarian engineers to enhance holographic projectors, design decoys, and mapped escape routes for civilian ships. His mind worked faster than ever, blending human creativity with Zalarian precision. As the plan unfolded, Kane was briefed on the battlefield. He would lead a squadron of elite pilots in a simulated retreat, drawing the Vorin into the trap. The operation was dangerous, but Kane's confidence in human ingenuity and his armor's capabilities gave him the courage to proceed. The fleet launched from the capital, a combination of human and Zalarian ships moving in perfect coordination. Kane's ship, sleek and reinforced with his armor's enhancements, led the decoy formation. Sensors picked up the Vorin fleet, moving silently and deliberately. Kane's heart raced, but he maintained focus. "Stay alert," he commanded his squad. "Predict their moves, but stay ready to improvise. They are not like any enemy we have faced." The Vorin attacked, taking the bait. Holographic projections created the illusion of weakness, drawing them into the confined space near the outer rings. Kane and his squad executed precise maneuvers, evading strikes and maintaining the illusion. It was a dance of deception, strategy, and nerve. Suddenly, the Vorin command ship revealed itself, a massive, dark vessel at the center of the fleet. Kane's instincts kicked in. He signaled the strike squad. "Now, focus on the command ship, precision and speed. Do not let them regroup." The attack was swift and coordinated. Specialized ships fired energy pulses that disrupted the command ship systems. The Vorin fleet faltered, their movements erratic. Kane pressed the advantage, using his armor's enhanced systems to guide the strike squad through the chaos. The battle raged, but Kane's human ingenuity turned the tide. The Vorin command ship was disabled, forcing the fleet to retreat. The Zalarians and humans had survived, not by sheer strength, but through creativity, adaptability, and courage. As the fleet returned to the capital, the council erupted in cautious celebration. Kane's contribution had saved countless lives and prevented catastrophe. Nisara approached him, her many arms resting gracefully. "Commander Kane, you have proven that humanity's spirit is more than legend. It is real. It can inspire, lead, and change outcomes even against the most advanced threats." Kane lowered his visor slightly, the hum of his armor soothing in his ears. "It is not just me," he said. "It is every human who ever refused to give up. That is our true power, our ability to adapt, to endure, and to turn even desperate situations into opportunities." Nisara's eyes softened. "Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humans for too long. Today we have seen the truth." Kane looked out at the city from the council chamber's windows. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows over the palace. The armor he wore glowed faintly in the fading light, a symbol of endurance, courage, and hope. Humanity had proven itself once again, yet Kane knew the battle was not over. The Vorin fleet might return, stronger and wiser, but he felt ready. He had learned to combine human ingenuity with Zalarian technology, creating strategies that no enemy could easily predict. He had learned that courage, adaptability, and intelligence were as important as strength. As night fell, Kane prepared for rest, but his mind remained active. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, diplomacy, strategy, and perhaps threats even greater than the Vorin. But he was ready. Humanity had survived before, and with every challenge they would grow stronger. Queen Nisara watched him from a distance, understanding at last that this human was more than a soldier. He was a symbol, a bridge between species, and a living testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. "Legends," she whispered softly, "are not only stories of the past. They are alive and they walk among us." Kane adjusted his armor and looked at the twin suns. He whispered to himself, steady and determined, "Legends are made every day. And humanity's story is just beginning." The twin suns rose over the Zalarian capital, casting long golden reflections across the crystalline towers. Commander Elias Kane stood on the balcony of the palace, gazing out at the city below. The battles, the tests, and the revelations of the past days had weighed heavily on him, but he felt an inner calm. Humanity had endured again, proving itself not just in survival, but in wisdom, courage, and ingenuity. He adjusted the straps of his legendary armor, running a hand along its familiar ridges. Each scratch and dent told a story, not only of past battles, but of lessons learned and victories earned. The armor had carried heroes before him, and now it carried him, a living testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. Behind him, Queen Nisara entered the balcony chamber, her many limbs moving with her usual elegance. "Commander Kane," she said softly, "your deeds have earned not only the Council's respect, but something deeper, the understanding that humanity is a force unlike any other. Your ingenuity, courage, and resilience, these are qualities even the oldest species admire." Kane bowed slightly. "It is not only me, Your Majesty. Humanity has survived through countless challenges. We endure, adapt, and rise when others might falter. That is the true legacy of our species." Nisara's eyes gleamed. "Indeed. And today, that legacy has inspired more than humans. You have shown the Zalarians, the Council, and even your enemies that strength is not measured by size or power alone, but by the mind and the heart. The galaxy must take note." Kane's thoughts drifted back to the Vorin threat. The fleet had retreated, their command ship disabled. Yet he knew this victory was temporary, a warning that the universe was vast, dangerous, and full of unknown perils. Humanity's role was just beginning, but Kane felt ready. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and capable of turning the impossible into possible. The Queen gestured toward a holographic display that shifted to show humans across multiple planets: engineers, soldiers, scientists, explorers. Kane saw images of cities, research stations, and colonies thriving despite harsh environments. Nisara's voice resonated over the display. "Your species has faced threats unimaginable to many in the galaxy. You have endured famine, war, disaster, and oppression. And yet you rise, you adapt, You survive. Today, that survival shines brighter than ever. Kane felt a surge of pride, but also humility. Humans had accomplished much, yet the universe held endless mysteries. The armor he wore symbolized courage, but it was only a vessel. Humanity's true power lay in its people, their creativity, resilience, and unyielding determination. Suddenly, alarms sounded across the palace. Kane stiffened, his instincts alert. "What now?" he asked. Nisara's expression was calm but serious. "This is not an attack, Commander. It is a communication, an offer from allied species who have observed your deeds. They wish to meet humanity, to form alliances, and to learn from your strategies and ingenuity. Your actions have resonated across the galaxy." Kane felt a thrill of recognition. Humanity, often underestimated and dismissed, was now being sought for partnership and counsel. The very qualities that had allowed humans to survive countless adversities, the ability to think creatively, adapt to circumstances, and inspire others, were now recognized as invaluable. "Humanity has much to offer," Kane said quietly. "Not just technology, but perspective, creativity, and the will to endure. We have learned to survive in ways other species might not even imagine." Nisara smiled, a rare warmth touching her usually stoic features. "And that, Commander, is why legends endure. They are not only remembered, they are lived, shared, and built upon. Today, you have not only proven yourself, you have carried the legacy of your species forward." Kane walked toward the balcony edge, overlooking the city that had faced chaos and emerged victorious. Soldiers, citizens, and engineers were repairing structures, restoring energy grids, and helping those in need. The spirit of cooperation and resilience was palpable. Kane realized that the human qualities he embodied, leadership, ingenuity, and courage, could inspire not just humans, but all species willing to learn. Nisara's voice came softly from behind him. "There is one more thing, Commander. The Council wishes to honor you, and through you, humanity. You will be recognized not only as a warrior, but as a symbol of unity and hope. Your actions will become part of Zalarian history, remembered alongside the greatest legends of the galaxy." Kane felt the weight of her words. It was more than recognition, it was validation of humanity's potential. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, dismissed as insignificant. Now they were being celebrated, respected, and sought as partners across the stars. As preparations for the ceremony began, Kane walked through the palace halls, observing the Zalarians preparing for the event. Holographic banners projected his image alongside the legendary armor he wore. Citizens and soldiers alike paused to watch, their expressions reflecting awe and admiration. Kane realized that he was not alone. He carried the hopes, dreams, and spirit of every human alive, and now they were being recognized. The ceremony took place in a vast amphitheater filled with Zalarian Council members, allies from other species, and observers from across the galaxy. Kane stepped forward, the armor gleaming under the radiant lights, and Queen Nisara addressed the assembly. "Today," she began, "we honor a human who has demonstrated courage, intelligence, and resilience in the face of challenges that would have overwhelmed most. Commander Elias Kane carries not only the armor of a legend, but the spirit of a species that has endured against incredible odds. Humanity is no longer to be underestimated. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and perseverance make them a force to be respected across the stars." The crowd erupted in respectful applause, not merely for Kane, but for the symbol he represented. Kane stood tall, bowing his head slightly. "I accept this honor," he said, voice steady and clear. "Not for myself alone, but for every human who has ever faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. Humanity's strength is not in a single individual. It is in every person who dreams, strives, and perseveres." As the ceremony continued, Kane felt a quiet satisfaction. The recognition was significant, but more important was the knowledge that humanity's qualities, resilience, courage, and ingenuity, were finally being acknowledged in the galaxy. For the first time, humans were seen not as a minor species, but as a force capable of shaping galactic events, building alliances, and inspiring others. After the ceremony, Kane and Queen Nisara returned to the palace balcony. The twin suns were setting, casting golden and violet hues across the city. Kane adjusted his armor one final time, feeling the familiar hum and weight. It was no longer just a relic of past legends. It was a symbol of the present, a bridge between species, and a promise of what humanity could achieve. Nisara's gaze rested on him. "Commander Kane," she said, "you have proven that humanity is more than legend. It is a living example of courage, ingenuity, and hope. The galaxy will remember this day, and through you, it will remember the spirit of your species." Kane looked at her, a quiet smile forming. "We will continue to learn, to grow, and to endure. Humanity has always faced challenges, and we will continue to rise to meet them. Legends are not static. They live in every action, every choice, and every moment of courage." The Queen nodded, a rare expression of admiration and respect in her eyes. "Then may your legend and the spirit of humanity endure for generations to come." As night fell, the city below shimmered with lights of recovery, resilience, and hope. Kane remained on the balcony, reflecting on the journey. The armor he wore had been a symbol, but humanity's true strength lay within the people themselves. Their creativity, their will to endure, and their ability to inspire others even in the darkest times. For the first time, Kane allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The trials, the battles, and the revelations had led to this moment. Recognition, respect, and the affirmation that humanity's story in the galaxy was only beginning. And somewhere deep in the stars, beyond the Zalarian Empire and the retreating shadows of the Vorin fleet, other species would hear the story. They would learn that humans were unpredictable, resilient, and capable of remarkable deeds. Humanity's legend was no longer confined to old tales. It was alive, growing, and influencing the future of the galaxy itself. Kane adjusted the armor one last time and whispered to himself, steady and determined. Legends live not in the past, but in the present, and in every act of courage, ingenuity, and endurance. Humanity's story has only just begun. Queen Nisara watched him quietly, knowing that the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. "The legend lives on," she whispered softly, "and humanity will shape the future in ways we cannot yet imagine." The twin suns dipped below the horizon, bathing the Zalarian capital in twilight. Kane stood tall, the armor glowing softly, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring spirit of humanity. In that moment, he understood that legends were not simply stories. They were lived, experienced, and carried forward by those brave enough to endure. And so, with the galaxy watching, humanity's legend continued, not just in the armor worn by one commander, but in the countless acts of courage, ingenuity, and perseverance carried out across the stars. The Queen, the Council, and the people of the Zalarian Empire had witnessed it firsthand. The human spirit was unstoppable, and the galaxy would never forget it.